The ones who were executed in this way were usually brought to wherever el Capitán General was. In this case, Juan de Esquivel. Las Casas says that at one point their cries were so loud that Juan de Esquivel actually came out of wherever he was, tent, fortress, whatever, and kind of told them, "Hey, this needs to stop because this is disturbing me." So there was obviously something in him that some human part in him still. But the executioner did not want to stop. So he stuffed their mouths with wood so that Juan de Esquivel didn't have to hear that. Tainos did everything to try to defeat the Spanish. Not only with the hunger part, but they also would destroy their water wells. And this technology was more seen in Higuey, where they had special kind of water wells called Higueyes, where they had fresh water for their villages or the yucayeques to drink. But the main purpose of this expedition was really to capture El Cacique, as his people were being searched for by the Spanish up in the mountains. COTUBANAMA had already fled with his family and those who wanted to follow him to La Isla Saona, which was technically abandoned. In a large cave, he managed to keep his family safe. But Juan de Esquivel managed to get the information out of some of the captives because COTUBANAMA would send out spies, just like Atue did, in order to keep himself safe. But since Juan de Esquivel now knew where he was, he designed a plan to get to the island of Saona at night. A historian says that apparently he had sent 2 spies to watch the sea, but they were late. And by the time they made it to the coast to watch out for ships, Juan de Esquivel had already docked and 30 Spanish had landed in La Isla. They supposedly went to the highest point on the island. And from there, they were able to see the 2 spies that COTUBANAMA had sent. They captured them. They then proceeded to ask where the cacique was. They supposedly said that he was nearby, also trying to make sure that the coast was clear. Using the indigenous man that they captured, because the other one, unfortunately, they stabbed to death, they made him basically guide them towards El Cacique. They come to a path where it divided left and right. We saw this earlier in the other war. But this time, both paths are clear. So most of the Spanish decide to go through the right path. But there was only one Spanish that decided to go through the left path. The Spanish who decided to go down the left path was named Juan Lopez. Here the account is a little fuzzy because it says that apparently the guides find COTUBANAMA in the trail. However, the one person that went down that trail was supposedly Juan Lopez. So did he take the one indigenous man that was still alive and the other dudes didn't? And it doesn't explain. What it does say is that because of the way the land basically graded down, you couldn't see who was coming up and you couldn't see who was coming down towards you. Bartolome de las Casas has a really bad way of writing and it makes it very confusing. But apparently whoever was in the front, that is, it was the indigenous persons who were guiding the Spanish, all of a sudden glimpse the cacique and they shut up, like they go mute. So the Spanish were like, where is he? What's going on? And the indigenous people say he's right behind you. And saying this, they take off. They abandon COTUBANAMA and leave him to his fate with Juan Lopez. Lopez takes out his sword and goes towards the cacique. The account says that the cacique hadn't seen a sword. Again, this is what it makes it difficult to understand what's happening. Because we know that COTUBANAMA had fought with the Spanish before. So how is this the first time he's seeing a sword? And supposedly, because it's the first time he's seeing a sword, he grabs the sword that Lopez is trying to stab him with his hands. And as he's trying to hold the sword, Lopez pulls the sword out of his hands and cuts his hand. As Lopez prepares to give the final stab, COTUBANAMA says his famous phrase, Maya ni macana, Juan de Esquivel, daca. No me mates, soy Juan de Esquivel. Because even with all of this, he respected the guatiao that he had performed with the cap. There were other indigenous people with the cacique who all fled. But even with his hands bleeding, COTUBANAMA doesn't give up. He continues to fight for the sword. And seeing that he couldn't, he throws his body against Juan Lopez, who was known to be a big wide man. He rams him into the rocks, forces him to fall. And in the struggle, COTUBANAMA manages to get Juan Lopez in a headlock. As he strangles him, Juan Lopez is making a lot of noise. And so the other Spanish who on the other trail heard him, and they began to run towards the sound. When they finally arrive, Juan Lopez is almost in the other world, and he is struggling to stay alive. The first to arrive to their struggle was a settler who had a crossbow, but the crossbow was dismantled because it had been used so much. So he whacked COTUBANAMA on the head to get him off of Juan Lopez. Juan Lopez survived, and the other Spanish managed to then capture COTUBANAMA. They took him to the abandoned Yucayeque on the island, and from there, they went to search for his wife and children.